Good evening. My name is Richard Cooper, and I'm the President and CEO of NYSPIN, a not-for-profit corporation. So we'd like to thank our sponsors. Big Visible has been a sponsor for several years, and we greatly appreciate their support. We'd also like especially to thank Maria Rader for helping to arrange for Kaplan Test Prep to be our host this evening. Tonight we have the return of Stellman and Greene. They closed out our 2011-2012 season, telling us all about beautiful teams. And we are pleased to welcome them back to open up our 2012-2013 season. I'm sure you've all had a chance to read their bios, so I'll just cut to the chase and say, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Stellman and Jennifer Greene.
Hey.
Walk.
So, first of all, it's great to be back at New York Spin. I think this is basically our favorite group to talk to. We've been doing New York Spin talks for years now.
It's kind of scary.
It's kind of scary.
Yeah.
So it's a little like coming home, which is very cool. We wanted to talk to you guys tonight about Scrum and self-organizing teams. Courage, openness, pigs, and chickens.
Before we get started, we'd like to learn a little bit about you guys. If you don't mind telling us who you are, maybe what you're hoping to get out of tonight's presentation. Anybody want to volunteer? Yeah, sure.
So I'm a programmer. I'm not a project manager, but my team is 2 developers, and so we are pretty much self-organized because we're just 2 people. And I'd like to learn how to manage this, so we're split up 4 hours.
So, very small team. Why the other manager sells better? So anybody who's had a positive or even better a negative experience trying to put Agile in place?
I work for a large bank, and we're trying to do Agile in a not-so-agile environment, so we've encountered some good things and a long list of challenges.
What's your biggest challenge? So this is for anyone who can hear. Someone who's at a bank trying to do Agile in a non-Agile environment and running into successes and challenges. What's your biggest challenge?
That things don't fit well in a sprint. There's so many constraints and things you need from people outside of the team and the people who have bought into Agile.
Things not fitting. Things not fitting in. People wanting a schedule rather than just a sprint. People wanting to commit to past just a sprint. Here's a whole lot of things that aren't done. Is that kind of?
That and also the bureaucracy of, oh, you mean you need a computer? Well, that will take 6 weeks.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah, it's hard. The organization that you're in needs to be able to support the speed at which decisions are made, right? Yeah. Okay.
I had years at a large payment services processor near you, and we started the first Scrum teams at that place. And some people thought they were chickens, and I thought they were pigs. So I'm trying to first figure out what they really are, and then maybe if I have the wrong idea, correct me. But if they have the wrong idea, or giving them some reason to believe that what they really are, they really should be more committed to the project, or they really don't need to be there all the time.
Do you have trouble trying to manage who's committed to the project and getting them on the committee? Anybody feel like they got Agile kind of in place, especially Scrum, but any kind of Agile in place, but and it's good, but you read about people with great results, and this is good. It's definitely better than we were before, but it seems like, okay, is that it? They wouldn't have felt like they've ever had that experience. Well, just better than not doing it results. Better than not doing it. Well, a couple people. Some people, sometimes get a lot of head nodding, sometimes a little bit of head nodding.
So in my experience, I work with people who don't have computer backgrounds, so they kind of like to see prototypes, because their idea of a prototype is the full final version, but for us it means a lot more work. So Agile kind of sort of not really doesn't work for us.
Okay, so that's a good starting point for the talk.
Yeah.
Agile kind of sort of does not work for us.
Well, explain why. Can you paraphrase what she said?
So basically, in this case, it was people are asking for a prototype. People are asking for, get the hands on something, when you'll see something, and and it's just the way people are asking you to work doesn't really match the way you actually work.
It doesn't optimize the resources.
It doesn't optimize resources. You're just not being, and I think that seems like a reasonably good description of a problem that a lot of people have been trying to solve for a really long time. And I think that's a good starting point for what we're going to talk about.
Do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. So my name is Stellman. I've been building software for a really long time. We've been building software together since '98 or so. When we first started working together. I actually worked in this building on the 6th floor for a few years. And I worked in the last building we met at for a few years too. So I keep moving from building I worked at to building to other building I worked at. For the last few years, I've been doing a lot of work with project management, managing teams, and just building software architecture.
And I've done all kinds of stuff, managed QA teams and project managers and BAs and pretty much everything but coding. So the two of us together, we've written these books, and I noticed that the sound's changing a lot when I move my head, right? So I guess I'll try not to do this too much. Okay, so I mean, so yeah, we've been working together for a long time. We've been writing, and one of the interesting things that kind of has happened to us over the past few years is we've started trying to reconcile a lot of the thinking that's out there about Agile with a lot of the experiences that we've had in various teams over the past few years.
Yeah, which is why we wanted to start off by asking a few questions about, kind of get a sense of where various people have been and are with their Agile experience, and to get a lot of different answers, but not actually all that many different answers.
Well, and one more thing, and then I will switch slides for you. And what we've found is that although there are a lot of people out there who are using various Scrum practices to make things better where they are, a lot of times we come across folks, and it's happened for us in our own careers too, where just having those practices isn't enough.
Yes.
So that's what spurred us to write this.
And practices are a good place to start. We live in the practices world. Our first book, Applied Software Project Management, is really highly focused on practices. It was, although we got a first hint that something was, I wouldn't say a miss, but interesting, when we wrote it as a really textbook on software project management. We used this graduate textbook on project management, software engineering. But we started getting feedback from people saying, wow, this is really Agile, which was weird because it wasn't meant to be Agile. It was very practices focused. And what we're seeing here, this is sort of the way we visualize what a Scrum project looks like. Just from a purely practices perspective. Just a show of hands, how many people here know what a Scrum project looks like, understand what the practices of Scrum are? Oh, excellent. There's most of the people here. So we won't spend too much time on this, but I do want to read. We intentionally made some of this text a little hard to read so I could read it out loud because it's a good way to make sure we're all on the same page. And this is a sort of description of how Scrum works. There's 3 main roles on a Scrum project: product owner, Scrum master, and team member. The team, including the product owner, maintains a backlog of features and requirements that need to be built, organized by value and deliverability. The software is built using time-boxed iterations called sprints to kind of represent sprints. In this case, a 30-day sprint. At the start of each sprint, the team does planning to determine which features in the backlog to build. Every day, the team holds a short face-to-face meeting called a daily Scrum to update each other on the progress they made and the roadblocks ahead. The Scrum Master keeps the project rolling by helping the team identify and remove roadblocks. At the end of the sprint, working software is demonstrated, that's called sprint review, and the team holds a retrospective to figure out lessons they've learned so they can improve.
It's very, very simple, right? I mean, we've got like 4 paragraphs there, and that's pretty much it.
Here we've got a burning little backlog of 21 features goes down to 17. At the end of one sprint, you've got 14 features here. The next one, you've got 14, and it burns down to 12. And the basic Scrum pattern is really simple, and most teams have no trouble adopting it. So if it's so easy, then why aren't all of us doing Scrum? And that's the starting point for a lot of this. And we wanted to dive a little bit into the practices and roles, and since everybody has some understanding of Scrum. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this. We just want to get everybody to a good starting point here. Basically, if you go to scrum.org, you can actually download a PDF with all the Scrum rules. It's 16 pages. It's not very big, pretty well spaced. And it covers this stuff. Project backlog, literally a list of features, items, things that you want to implement. A lot of people use user stories for that backlog, but it's not actually anywhere in the rules of Scrum that we have to. Sprints, sprint planning and sprint backlog. At the beginning of the sprint, figuring out what goes into the sprint. Planning it out, and then pulling off that backlog of all the features that people in your business want you to build, and saying, these are the ones that are going to go into the sprint. For sprint planning, story points and project velocity are tools that you can use to estimate the size of those things.
Yeah, so sprint and project retrospectives. Oh, sorry, I missed task boards and burn down charts.
Use the daily Scrum. It's pretty important.
So, I mean, you guys know what all these are, right? Daily Scrum meeting, everybody answers the 3 questions.
What have I done since the last daily Scrum? What am I going to do between now and the next one? And what roadblocks are in the way?
Right.
15 minutes a day for the whole team to sit there and meet. Sometimes standing up, but it's not required.
Task, yeah.
That's what's supposed to happen.
That's right, but we're just talking about the practices at this point, right?
Yeah.
And it does happen on lots of teams.
This is, honestly, I have seen many, many teams have no trouble putting in place a daily Scrum. Getting everybody together. Yes, there are challenges, and I've certainly seen teams that just can't get to do it. And there are techniques for that, to get to the stragglers in. But really getting the team together for 15 minutes to have everybody answer the question, what have I done since the last meeting? What am I going to be doing until the next one? And what are my roadblocks? It's just not that hard to do. You know, getting the team to spend 4 hours at the beginning, or 8 hours at the beginning of the month or at the beginning of the sprint, and 4 hours at the end doing the sprint planning and doing the retrospective. Just it's not that hard to get in place. Not impossible. Not without its challenges. And I'm sure everybody can think of some challenges they've had.
So for those of you who are using Scrum, are there any of the practices that are listed here that you're not using? Is anybody not using one of these practices or more?
Well, at the daily stand-ups that I'm attending, because this is a new project, the issue right now is they're first trying to get into the 3 questions. They've basically been conversations and technical solutions and solving problems during those 15 minutes that people are getting together that aren't necessarily getting together throughout the rest of the day.
So the feedback is that the daily Scrum is being turned into more of a general,
status meeting, what you would have called it in the past, maybe?
Okay.
Is that true for anybody else? Does that ring true for other folks? Yeah?
Daily Scrum kind of turning
Yeah? Okay.
Daily Scrum turning into kind of a status meeting. Okay, yes.
Also, sometimes the schedule gets really crunched. Just give a really perfunctory retrospective, which is really
That's a good one. The schedule gets crunched. You're technically doing a retrospective, but it's only perfunctory. So that's really good. These are common. So you're doing the practices. You're having a daily Scrum. You're having a retrospective. You're able to tick the box off the list. But that there's, and it probably is better than not doing it. It's better than not having a retrospective.
We had another problem where it's part of the team, half of the team has been working until 1 o'clock in the morning. They don't get there at 11, so it's impossible.
Oh, people don't attend the Scrum meeting because they're working so late.
Yeah, working crazy hours over one's team leads to an unfocused team basically. That's a really common way for Scrum to break too.
And then the other challenges we have is some of us are on other projects besides.
Right, some people being on other projects, they can't focus on one project.
So this is great. And if you look at the problems you guys just mentioned in relation to these values that are listed here, right? And this is kind of the point of this slide for us. So although the roles are simple to understand, the practices are easy to understand and easy to name, the values are really what give them direction, right?
So I like this quote from Jim Highsmith, and if you haven't read his book on Agile Project Management, it's awesome. Grand principles that generate no action are mere vapor. Conversely, specific practices in the absence of guiding principles are often inappropriately used. And in fact, what I'm hearing from 3 to 4 people here is practices that are inappropriately used because people aren't focused. because they don't have commitment, because there's not a basic level of respect for the team to do the thing that you're committed to doing. These Scrum values are interesting, and we're going to focus a lot on them for the rest of this talk.
So the other important thing is, and for those of you who were here at the Beautiful Teams talk that we did, we talked about the notion that organizations have values of their own, and that teams have values of their own, and when they don't mesh, there can be problems. And it's a theme also that we're talking about here. Scrum has values, and if those values clash with the organization that you're in, you're going to have problems adopting it properly. Did you want to say anything else about the?
I think just, we're going to come back to them, but try to keep in mind commitment, respect, focus, openness, and courage. They basically mean what they sound like, but if they don't they don't cause you to pause a little bit, we're going to give you some ways to think a little bit more clearly about them, because they're kind of the important piece here. It's really easy to miss them. I've gone to a lot of Scrum talks where there was one slide, perfunctory slide about, here's the Scrum values, now let's get into those practices. Think about why a talk would be structured like that, and when we come back around to it, hopefully it'll kind of proceed something that will spark your thoughts a little bit. So I want to read this to you. This is from Agile Project Management with Scrum, which is the book on Scrum written by Ken Schwaber. It's the book that introduced Scrum to the Agile community, and for most people, it's basically the reference guide to Scrum, and it's a great book. For Scrum to work, the team has to deeply and viscerally understand collective commitment and self-organization. Scrum's theory, practices, and rules are easy to grasp intellectually, but until a group of individuals has made a collective commitment to deliver something tangible in a fixed amount of time, those individuals probably don't get Scrum. When the team members stop acting as many and adopt and commit to a common purpose, the team becomes capable of self-organization and can quickly cut through complexity and produce actionable plans. I just want to roll back. If you don't get collective commitment, and you don't get collective commitment and self-organization, probably don't get Scrum. And that's what we're trying to focus on here.
So collective commitment and self-organization. For those of you who are using Scrum right now or are thinking about using Scrum, that's what we're going to focus on for the rest of this talk, because we think it is the key to understanding Scrum and the difference between getting a marginal productivity improvement in using these practices and getting a huge productivity improvement in using these practices. So we talk about motivation, what makes folks who are on a team do the things they do, right? And it's common for everybody to have their own reasons for doing things that are important to them in their career. That's not wrong.
I mean, I'm seeing smiling and head nodding because we all think this, and that's totally cool. I mean, working with this technology will look great on my resume. I've done that. Guilty. And you know what? It's actually good for the project too. It turned out to be a good technology to use. So it's not that these things are bad. It's just that it's really important to understand what motivates us. Getting a promotion, getting a larger team, getting a big bonus. And we all have our own self-interests. There's nothing wrong with it. But just think about what motivates a person. That's going to be a little different than what motivates a team.
So when you self-organize, you have to self-organize against an elevated goal. That means a goal that is more important to the team members professionally than their own career advancement.
We had an amazing opportunity in writing Beautiful Teams. It's actually edited by us rather than written by us. We wrote chunks of it, but a big chunk of it is stories and interviews with people who we've been reading for years. People who, like Barry Nave, it's amazing work, but Steve McConnell, Brady Gooch, Scott Ambler, Joanna Rothman, Patricia Ensworth, who we met here a couple of years ago at a New York Spin talk. And one of the things that several people who we really respect talked to us about was how to motivate teams, what it takes to motivate teams. Steve McConnell, who, and honestly, if you haven't read books by Steve McConnell, Scott Ambler, or Grady, which you really, really should. If you're going out digging ditches, that's not very elevating or inspiring. But if you're digging ditches to protect your town that's about to be attacked by an enemy, well, that's more inspiring, even though it's the same activity. And so the leader's job, really, is to try to determine or frame the activity in such a way that people can understand what the value is. That word value is something that we talk about in Agile, but a lot of us kind of say it without really understanding it. You know what? Same goes true with traditional project management. I mean, if you passed the PMP exam or studied for it, you learned about earned value management. And we kind of pretend that we can enumerate value. And if you're on a job to install 1,000 door frames or wire up 100 floors of a building, then you can probably put the number on that value. But actually talking about value is really hard. And that's something we're also going to come back to.
You can't always tell when a team is dysfunctional. If there's negative shouting and screaming, that's a problem. But sometimes you can be on a team where everyone's trying and nobody's communicating. Nobody's reaching their goals. The easy analogy is during the day you've got people digging a hole, and at night people are filling it up. Everybody's working really hard digging and filling holes, but in the end, nothing of value is actually occurring. That's Scott Ambler.
I'm not sure why both Scott Ambler and Steve Steve McConnell independently talked to us about digging ditches. It probably says something about the nature of software engineering.
There's a little joke about project management. The first thing you do to get a proposal, you dig yourself a hole. The second thing you do is climb into it. And the third thing you do is dig yourself out.
Yeah.
So that I understand where Scott's coming from.
That's pretty awesome. Maybe this last quote before you reach. One of the signs that I have for the health of an organization is that they're reticent to fail. Organizations that are totally anal and refuse to fail at all tend to be the least innovative organizations, and they're hardly any fun. Because these people are so fearful of failing, they take the most conservative actions. On the other hand, organizations that are freer in failing, not in a way that will destroy the business, but in a way that are given some freedom to fail, are the ones that are more productive, because they're not in fear for their life with every line of code. These all tie into motivation. How do you get a group of people motivated to do something? The way we talk about motivating people with positive things, motivating them with negative things, promotion, performance, new technology, money, or you'll get yelled at or fired, reticent to fail. You better step to it.
But we think that people who do what we do, who build software, are motivated by value, by delivering value, by building stuff that people can use and that they get something out of.
We're calling that an elevating goal, which we lifted from Steve. The idea is, this is just something that's unique to software engineering. Go back to one of my favorites, Pandemic, talking about pride of workmanship. And that's something that drives craftsmen, that drives engineers. Something where getting something that you built well, into the hands of somebody who uses it, and that thing makes their lives better, that is probably the most motivating thing that in my career when that happens. And I talk to a lot of people, that tends to be almost universally motivating for teams. And that thing that you put in someone's hands that makes their life better, that to me is what it means to deliver value. But it's also really notoriously difficult to quantify. Is the boss really needs this done an effective goal, an elevating goal the team can rally around?
That's hard, right? If all you hear is, somebody needs this thing for you to do, and you don't really understand the value that it's bringing or the good that comes out of the work that you're doing, it's difficult to get your head that this is more important than my own self-interest, right? And for a Scrum team to be really effective, you really have to say, delivering value is more important to us than any other goal that might be competing with that.
which is really, really hard if you're on a team where the official story is, yeah, you can be pulled off at any time to do something totally unrelated that you might not care that much about, that might not have that obvious value, that obvious sort of elevating goal nature to it.
So we want to talk about, and go back to you were telling us a little bit earlier, Richard, that on your team, sometimes folks treat the daily Scrum as a status meeting. We want to talk about the difference between command and control management and self-organization.
First of all, just to make sure that we're all on the same page with just the terminology. Command and control doesn't refer to, we've got hierarchy and bosses. We do have, it doesn't matter where you work, you're going to have a boss unless you're the CEO of the company. And even then, your boss is probably going to be the board of directors and shareholders. And they're probably not going to solve it for you. So when we say command and control, what that refers to is a style of project management. And it's a style of project management that can be illustrated pretty well in how you run a status meeting. In fact, let's talk about what we had 2-3 different people talking about how they could use their daily Scrum, their daily meeting that happened for a Scrum project, turning into a status meeting, giving status updates. And let's just say that it's a meeting where we actually do answer those 3 questions. You go through the ceremony. And, each person says, what have I done since the last daily Scrum? What am I going to do between now and the next one? What are my roadblocks? And a command and control version of that goes like this. Say I'm the project manager. I'm going to say, okay, Jenny, how far have you gotten on the tasks I gave you between last Scrum meeting and now? And you'll tell me. And I'll say, okay, Jenny, now tell me, so here are the next tasks for you that I'm assigning you. Now tell me, what roadblocks do you need me to get out of your way so I can clear them out? Richard, here are the tasks that I'm giving you. Tell me the status of the tasks that since the last day of Scrum. The tasks I'm going to be giving you between the next one, and tell me what roadblocks I can get out of your way.
That encourages the project manager to not only be the keeper of the plan, but also the keeper of the goal, right? The project manager in that case is controlling where the project is headed and is steering people that way. And that's not how an effective Scrum team works.
No, that's not to say it's not an effective way to run a project. And there are many, many projects, many project managers that manage in this way. And in fact, both Jenny and I have managed projects like this. So we're not trying to say one way is better, one way is worse. But we are trying to say that one way is compatible with the values of Scrum and the other way isn't. Now, what happens if one day I have an epiphany and I'm no longer a project manager, but a Scrum master? And I come in, and me and Jenny and Richard and our 3 or 4 or 5 other team members are sitting there at the beginning of the daily Scrum meeting, and I don't say anything. And a minute or 2 goes by, and everybody's not looking around. Why isn't he saying anything? and finally, 3 or 4 minutes will go by, and someone will say, okay, well, here's what I did since the last day of the Scrum. And I'll be like, okay, good. And so wait, what are my next? So what are my next tasks? Tell me, what should I be doing next? What do you think you should be doing next? I mean, we planned out 30 days of work, right? And that's 30 days from inception, planning to completion, working software. Because one of the basic ideas of Agile was you deliver working software. That was in those rules. You deliver, demonstrate working software at the end of the sprint. That shows you all the stuff that you said that you were going to do. 3, 4, 5 people working for 30 days, we all should have a pretty good idea of what it is we're going to be building. So you should be able to say, you know what, I'm going to do this thing next. You don't need me to tell you. I might like to.
And what's worse, if someone who isn't able to or isn't part of understanding the problem that's being solved in the same way that you are, is attempting to assign all of this stuff, there's a pretty good chance that a less efficient way of doing that work is where you're going to end up, right? Having a project manager being able to sit and say, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, probably means that you're going to constrain the way that you work around this one person's judgment. And the goal here is that everybody's trying to solve this problem. Everybody's coming at it with all the information that they bring to it. And the work is better organized by that group of people who understand the problem best, rather than by a Scrum Master or a project manager.
And it's better organized by making decisions now about what we're going to be doing over the next day, rather than requiring us to plan out all those decisions at the beginning. Because for me as a project manager, managing a command and control project, for me to say, I am going to assign you things today, and you things today, and you things today, that means I need to be going off a plan. I basically have to have planned out the next 30 days of work up front. And while some things should be planned, there are a lot of decisions that are actually better made partway through. And this is a source of productivity, a really strong source of efficiency for Scrum.
So how many folks sitting here are familiar with the term last responsible moment?
We got one. So this is a really important part of effective agile development and effective Scrum. The idea that you make decisions at the last or the latest responsible moment. Because, usually somebody is thinking, and I bet at least one person here is thinking, well, what about, you've got a really strong technical person, and they're gonna be doing this one task. This is a really big technical task. Well, shouldn't you write that down at the beginning of the project? And the answer is why? Because everybody knows that he's going to be doing that or she's going to be doing that. If you've got this really senior DBA and some really tricky database optimization, it's pretty unlikely that that person's going to be, that really complex DBA task is going to be going to a junior developer. On the other hand, let's say that we also assume that writing these 12 stored procedures and doing this database schema update is also going to go to the DBA. And you get about 2/3 of the way through the sprint, and you realize that there's just more work for that person than you had time for. Now, if you were lucky, he did the really complex task first. But what if he'd done the stored procedures first and the database schema first, and now 2/3 of the way through, and he doesn't have time to finish that really complex task? That's a problem. And it's a problem that we've all run into. That idea of cascading delays because you misunderestimated something, and suddenly your whole project plan's thrown off. The first talk we did for New York Spin, I think, was our Why Projects Fail talk.
Cascading delays was one of the reasons.
And everybody nods their head about cascading delays. Well, cascading delays happen because you're making a lot of decisions at the beginning that don't necessarily have to be made. You're adding a lot of extra dependencies that you have to, if you need a plan to work off of, so you can tell, as one person, I can say, you do this, and you do this, and you do this, and you do this. I can gather all the experts at the beginning and do my estimation and work breakdown then. But if I can push some of that, and you can always push some of it, and often a surprising amount of it, to the middle of the project, to happen in real time, just in time, you can avoid so many of those delays and so many of those hiccups. And it really can make a huge productivity difference.
I don't want to follow the example. By everyone knows the DBA is going to do those 5 tasks, doesn't that encourage other people to not step up and do them earlier?
So that's a good question. If everybody knows the DBA is going to go do those 5 tasks, doesn't that discourage people from stepping up and doing them? And in fact, the opposite tends to be true. This is a really important aspect of the daily Scrum. So it turns out the daily Scrum is a deceptively simple but remarkably complex piece of equipment that we have. Because what it actually is, and if you read Ken Schwaber on this is what he talks about.
It's an inspection.
It's an inspection. It is visibility, inspection, and adaptation. It is everybody. It's not one person planning. It's everybody getting together every day with eyes on that plan. It's Linus's law, more eyeballs, right? You're gonna find more eyeballs, find more defects. Well, every day you put your plan under inspection by the whole team. Everybody feels like they own it. Everybody feels like they can contribute to it. And if somebody, what's more likely? What's more likely to happen? Somebody taking a task that they shouldn't be doing or having a problem? If a single person, project manager, at the beginning of the project, before everybody's really gotten into it, plans everything out, or if you put that plan under inspection every single day by the whole team, isn't it much more likely that someone might catch that problem? That's not a problem you described. Isn't a problem that's going to be caught by the project manager. That's a problem that's going to be caught by a team member. Someone's going to take, because you all know what's coming. You all see it. And someone's going to say, this is coming. You'll probably see it.
So what I was getting at wasn't the project manager versus the team. It's why leave it as an undocumented, unsaid assumption. Why not say it at the planning meeting that everyone's at so that there's an opportunity for the person to say, wait, you're relying on me.
So the question is, why not make it an undocumented, why leave it an undocumented assumption?
Yeah.
So what this means is it's much more likely to be undocumented in a command and control system because you have one keeper of the plan. Because honestly, developers rarely step up and say, you know what, that plan's wrong. Rarely. Even when they know it's wrong. What they will say is, that's stupid project manager. And then the next thing they think is, oh, that plan's wrong. And when this falls apart, that's totally going to give me like 3 extra weeks to work on this other thing. We've all played that CYA game. And it's worth being explicit about it. That when you have one person who's the keeper of the schedule, it's really comfortable for everybody else who's scheduled out by that person to say, well, this plan completely ran into a train wreck. It's his fault. And even better, the project manager can look back and say, man, those guys gave me terrible estimates and totally didn't detect those dependencies. You know what? I'm going to do my job and report this problem upwards. So the developers can CYA upwards. The project manager can CYA downwards. Nobody really gets blamed, but your project just runs into a wall. That's, it happens. And I'm seeing enough smiling and nodding that we've all been there.
Okay, so we want to talk about the actual positives of command and control, because there are some positives. And it's really about slowing down change. I mean, what happens in command and control is by putting someone in control of the scope and the plan, you have someone to be vigilant about any change that might be coming your way and shooting it down. And that's the waterfall way of working, right? It's the way that software was built for years and years.
And it's a good way to do things, it's not terrible. We did it for years. It's a cohesive, effective way to work if you work within that system.
But if you don't want to slow down change, if you want to embrace change, it's not compatible.
There are a lot of gating factors in waterfall development. By definition, right? I mean, we say it. There's a gate between the phases. Gating factors are, by definition, factors to slow down development. Slow it down until we work out the details of this change. And slowing down development, if you're on a team where it feels right to slow down the development, then waterfall will work for you. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what it means and why people have that feeling. And feelings is weird to talk about.
Yeah, go ahead.
One thing I saw lots of projects that had change requests in waterfall where hundreds and hundreds of changes were accommodated, carefully controlled, and accommodated on schedule. So I mean,
I'm not saying that they're not accommodated.
It's not always shifting the schedule back.
We're not talking about shifting the schedule back. We're talking about slowing down the rate of change, meaning it's controls, and that's why it's called change control, right?
And keep in mind, we have both, independently and together, set up change control systems at multiple companies. It is an effective way to work, and it's an effective way to get your software out the door on time. It's just that it does slow things down. Instead of embracing change, you control change. And it's not that it's bad. It's just that it's different.
And I think the thing that we're trying to show here specifically is even though they're both good ways of working, you can't do one and call it the other. Right?
We're going to come back to that. If there's one takeaway, it's you can't do one and call it the other. But there are still things you can do, and that's where we're headed with this. So hold on to that. So we're going to talk about pigs and chickens.
Andrew drew the pig and I drew the chicken, and I think the chicken's better. Thanks.
She's a better artist. I'm gonna plug our our Head First books, Head First PMP for people studying the PMP exam, and Head First C# for people who want to learn C# are full of lots of little drawings. And while I tell the story of the pig and the chicken, I'm gonna find one. So a pig and the chicken are walking down the street, and the chicken says, "Let's open up a restaurant." And the pig says, "That's a great idea. What should we call it?" The chicken says, "Let's call it bacon and eggs." The pig thinks for a second and says, "You know what? I'm out. Because you're merely involved, but I'm committed." Because the pig's dead, right? Yeah.
It's a good one.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
And see, here's drawings. A little chunk of a bee and a little beehive. Plug in the book for a second.
He drew the bee.
I drew the bee in the beehive.
Yeah.
Crude but cute. Now, why are we getting cute here? Because Scrum teams talk about them. They actually talk about pigs and chickens. And in fact, even in countries where it's like really, really insulting to call somebody a pig, they'll call themselves pigs and chickens. And pig is a good thing. Because the pig is committed. And when you're a pig for your project, okay, you don't actually have to die for your project, but figuratively, you're going to put yourself out there for your project. When all your team members are pigs, it means that everyone's committed. And it's also interesting because anybody will do any job, even jobs that they wouldn't necessarily do. I was just talking to somebody who was really, really telling me about a coworker of hers who was really, really mad that she was being assigned this job doing this thing where they had to put stuff into a system for some compliance reason. And she was livid. "This isn't my job. Who gave me this job?" That's a good example that she's probably not a pig, but she's a chicken. Chickens are assigned, and they're interested. And they generally want the project to come out well. But they don't have that level of personal commitment to the project. And you know what? It's good to be a chicken. What I was saying before about CYA, where I'm the developer and the guy, the project manager, is the keeper of the plan. He made it, and he made that plan wrong, and now the project's running into problems, and it's not my fault. And now things kind of just slowed down for me, and it's cool. I can kind of hang out, learn some new technology, look at ESPN.com or whatever. Because it's not my pride. I don't feel that commitment. I don't feel personally committed to it. I will do a good job, but I'll also totally be fine with the project slowing down, and it's cool. If it's somebody else's problem, just get off my nose. And that CYA mentality is really easy, and it's really easy for a project manager to say, "Hey, these guys gave me bad estimates. These guys didn't detect all the dependencies. So my plan is wrong. So of course the project's going to run into a problem. I'm doing a really good job of reporting it upwards."
Being a pig means you can never, ever do that. Being a pig means that if your project doesn't succeed, then you don't succeed. Your team and you succeed together or fail together. And that's a big mindset change for a lot of folks.
I'm hoping that we're starting to draw that line between the elevating goals and being a committed person on your project, being a pig. Because if you genuinely feel motivated by taking the software, getting it in the hands of the users, and what really motivates you, what gets you out of bed in the morning is, I'm working on this thing that's going to make their lives better, those delays hurt. That project running into a wall, you're like, "Oh no, I want to get this done for these guys." It's a great way to work if you feel that way. And then you're really going to try to find ways not to control change, but to embrace change. Because where it changes.
Because it's more important to you to deliver the thing that the people actually need than it is to meet a deadline or a schedule or any other commitment that you've made. What do you say? Our commitments don't. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. So,
sorry.
Our plans don't commit us.
Right.
We're really used to holding up a Gantt chart or a project plan or whatever. This is your commitments. You made these commitments. Look, you signed off on it. That's not a commitment. That's a piece of paper, right? Our plans don't commit us. Our schedules don't commit us. Our commitments commit us, and our plans and our schedules are just where we write those things down.
So the Scrum values, now we get to talk about them in depth. Starting with commitment. appropriately enough. Each person is committed to the project's goals.
Our plan doesn't commit us. Our commitments commit us.
Yeah.
Plan is just where we write it down.
Yeah.
And that's why it's not actually all that strange to talk about feelings. Sort of mushy stuff that developers especially sometimes are uncomfortable talking about. Once you get into it, it's actually not that hard to break through with it, because we're talking about things we feel. Commitment is something you actually feel. You feel a sense of commitment. You actually feel a sense of ownership. You actually want to do it.
And I want to step back and say for a second, if you look at these words, commitment, respect, focus, openness, and courage, who is going to say, no, I don't want that, right? I mean, no one ever says in the abstract, I don't want commitment and I don't want respect. But you have to think about for yourself, what does commitment mean in relation to the way I'm working today, right? How does that change the way that I approach my project?
How many people here, it's rare that we actually talk to people who focus on process improvement. How many people here have been involved in a CMM process improvement effort? That is so cool. I just love that. Really awesome. I love that more than half the hands in the room go up. That's why we're home, right?
Yeah.
You should ask how long ago.
Yeah.
And how successful.
Well, and that's it. How long ago, how successful, especially how successful.
Yeah.
How many of those process improvement efforts hit a roadblock because you tried to put something in place that exposed a problem that somebody really didn't want exposed?
That's happened, right?
That's happened. I'm seeing chuckling from people whose hands aren't going. It's happened. It's happened to you. It's happened to me.
Yeah.
I guarantee that even if that's not the direct cause of the process improvement failure, if it got shut down by some senior executive, what really happened was some senior executive suddenly found himself on the hook for things that he used to be able to push off on an underling. That's easily, by far, the most common reason for CMM process improvement efforts and any kind of process improvement effort to get canned. Openness is tough, and commitment is tough. And we're going to try to make that case for you in the next slide or two. Respect is tough. We respect people, but how many times have you seen a developer, being told, just go and do it? I don't want to hear it, from a boss. How many times, there's also an interesting, and it's not just downward, it's across, laterally, upwards. There's a great story, another beautiful team story. A guy named Andy Lester has a great blog called The Working Geek, who told us a story about talking to developers, and they're having some trouble, and he said, well, can't we at least have a basic level of respect for each other? And one of the developers here there said, well, what if the person I'm talking to isn't worthy of respect? And,
that's baffling, right? I mean,
as a human, it's baffling.
Yeah, who would say that? But people think that, and people do say that.
They treat each other badly, especially developer on developer. Developer on developer violence. It's not good. At least 3 different people raised their hand earlier when we were talking to you guys, and Todd said had a focus problem. I don't have time. I don't have time. I'm forced to work really late. I can't even make the daily Scrum because I was up too late. I'm being pulled away constantly. I'm working on too many projects. People can't take the time to do things we're committed to doing.
And how can you be committed to the value that your project is creating? How can you be committed to your elevating goals if you're on 5 different Scrum teams at the same time? It's not how it works.
But it is how it works with a lot of companies. Yeah. And openness, transparency is a killer. It is, we were saying before that the daily Scrum is an inspection, visibility, inspection, adaptation cycle. And shining a flashlight on that plan, putting it in everybody's hands every day, suddenly, I'm a developer. I can't blame somebody else for having sent me down the path on a task that I don't think I should be doing, I don't want to do, I hate it. I'm the one who chose it. I chose it because it had to be done, and no one else was going to do it because everybody else was doing other stuff that also had to be done that was equally important. I'm going to take that one. That's a tough place to be if you're used to being able to blame somebody every time something goes wrong. I mean, Speaking as somebody who started out as a developer and I still code and I really like it, it is really, really, really common for developers to say, oh, stupid, stupid people, stupid plans, stupid, stupid, stupid. Well, when I'm the one who did it and I'm the one who made it and I feel like I own it, I can't say that. And openness is the way to make people feel that way. And courage is the hardest one.
Yeah, because courage is about if the values of Scrum don't mesh with the company that you're in. And I don't think I've ever heard of a company that says we're going to go Scrum and the next day everybody's fine with it. And the courage is being able to handle that pushback, being able to stay true to your values even though the folks around you may not fully accept what you're doing and may not be where you are quite yet.
Courage is really hard when you're dealing with the boss. Imagine a conversation between the CEO and the Scrum Master about a project. The CEO asks what he's going to get with the $2 million investment in software over the next year. The Scrum Master tells the CEO that he's not sure yet. They'll have an update every month, and at the end of the project, they'll have at least $2 million worth of software. No CEO in his right mind would ever approve that project. And why not? And think about it. You probably have some sort of intuitive guess as to why he wouldn't approve that. And I know that keeps that in your mind when we go to these questions. And this is a little game we like to play. It's called Are You Okay With?
And by game, we mean we just read stuff off to you.
It's fun for us. It's easy to get behind the Scrum values as abstract concepts, but a lot harder to stick with them if your company's culture clashes with them. And this is a little test to see if your company's culture clashes with these values. And we went in order from pretty difficult to freaking impossible for a lot of companies. So starting with, oddly enough, respect, which is probably, of all of them, the easiest, but still hard. Are you okay with trusting the team to deliver each feature at the best possible date based on relative value and how the project progresses? Are you okay with giving the team enough time to do the work and not demanding overtime with them? Because if they're working until 1 a.m., they're not going to come in time for daily Scrum. And that's a basic level of respect. Are you okay with trusting the team to choose tasks that are right for them in the project rather than relying on strict roles and RACI matrices, etc.? Because you have roles and you have RACI matrices, but if they're not right, the team should have the right to go beyond them. Or maybe not. Maybe that's not the way the company works. But if you're not okay with that, it should tell you something. Are you okay with not ever being able to say again that you don't know why the team decided to do something the way they did? Because saying, I don't know what they were doing, I don't know, they gave me some estimate, that's actually disrespectful, is the bottom line of it.
Commitment. Are you okay with relinquishing control of the project and trusting the team to decide what gets delivered? Are you okay with not going off on your own and building something without talking to the rest of the team and just integrating it at the end? It's a developer-oriented question, but happens all the time.
If you Google for gold plating software, I think one of our posts comes up at the very top. It's a lousy name, but we talk about gold plating, and it's something developers do all the time. We want to do it because it can be done.
Are you okay with not having one ringable neck?
Which is it's actually a basic principle of a lot of project management, having a single ringable neck. It's written down. It's in books.
Are you okay with listening to the comments and feedback and not telling people to mind their own business? And this is a big thing about openness, right? In Scrum teams, you're always sharing the product of your work. You're always inspecting with the rest of the team. And that means that the rest of the team is going to have opinions about what you're doing, and you have to listen to that.
And not just you have to listen and sit there like, I hate it. You actually have to listen.
Yeah.
And recognize that they might and probably are right.
Because their motivation is to get the thing out the door, just like you.
Focus. Are you okay with never asking anyone on the team to do work that's not part of the current sprint? Which the answer is a resounding no at many, many places. Are you okay? And not just from the top down, from the bottom up too. I mean, it feels good to be that superhero who can multitask on like 12 things at once. Yeah, totally, throw it on me. I'll get it done. And then you're like, people love you. You get a huge bonus if you're at a company that gives bonuses. You'll have a huge amount of respect for you because you can do all these things. So focus goes both ways. Are you okay with putting what's most valuable to the company ahead of all other project or work concerns, including learning that new technology, including
getting that promotion?
Yeah. Which, incidentally, I think both of us have actually been in that position and chose the project over the promotion, for what it's worth. Are you okay with?
I don't know if that's anything to brag about.
Yeah, I know. It's probably shouldn't. It probably makes us. Are you okay with thinking about project planning or users if you never have before? Because a lot of developers,
I mean, that's the thing, right? If you're a developer and you want to just sit at your desk and focus and just do that thing, you can't do that. You have to be aware of the decisions that are being made in planning. You have to care about every piece of it.
Here are the harder ones. Those are hard, and these are really hard. Openness. Are you okay with not being able to predict what date each feature is going to be released? Not that you can't assign a release to it, not that you can't make some sort of estimate, not even that you can't do release planning. It's just that it might be a case that you can't be handed a guaranteed delivery date of something. Because those delivery dates are probably going to be wrong anyway. But, mostly it's about the fact that you are going to be the source, if you are the business person, of many of the changes that cause that. And you have to be okay with the fact that you're going to look at it, and instead of just being, say, given, here's a release date, you actually kind of get to see how the sausage is made. And that takes away some of the CYA that you get to have. Are you okay thinking about technical details if you have never have before? Because it's really hard to yell at the team and blame them if you recognize now that there is a giant technical problem that has to be solved. The project's going to get done. And the team they really genuinely couldn't have seen it coming. Or maybe they could have, but they didn't. But now these are people you know and you work with, and you can't really blame them for not being able to predict the future. Or can you? I mean, if there's openness, you can't anymore, and that's uncomfortable. Are you okay with thinking about what the programmer next to you is working on and whether it really fits into the overall goal? Because a lot of developers, we hear it all the time. We talk about developers. Nose to the grindstone, head down developer. Shut them in a closet and have them code. And you hear that all the time. And if you're on a team and that team's self-organizing, and every person on the team is a pig, every person on the team is genuinely committed to the goal, then you're going to care about what the people around you are doing, and they're going to care about what you're doing. And you have to be okay with that. So not only are you okay with thinking about what the programmer next to you is doing, are you okay with he or she thinking about your work the same way? And it's not like, what are you even doing? This is mine. Get off it. You can't get over, commitment, this kind of level of commitment involves collective ownership of the code, collective organization, and not in some sort of weird political way, but just means that I can feel comfortable changing this line of code even if you wrote it, because we all own it and we all trust each other. Are you okay with that?
Courage. Not being able to blame lack of planning on your project manager. Not being able to blame poor requirements that don't hit the mark on your product owner or senior managers.
Are you really okay with those things?
Taking the time to really understand your users.
You have a developer who's like halfway through the user talking, oh, stop, I know exactly what you want. I just saw that the other day, and I saw it a couple weeks ago. We see it all the time. You don't have to tell me what you want anymore. I know exactly what you need. Didn't take the time to understand your users, but it's a great way to build software. Fun.
Building something that isn't perfect because what the users need most is something that's simply good enough.
So what if you're not okay with these things? I mean, if almost everybody who's been involved in the process improvement effort probably recognizes that there are many, many teams and many, many companies that are not going to be okay with most of this stuff. So what do you do? Not every team and every company can self-organize from day one, and that's okay. If your company's culture doesn't match the Scrum values, your job as a Scrum adopter is to help the people around you understand its values. Don't just adopt some practices and then call it a complete Scrum adoption. That's the key. You know,
That's what happens, right? A lot of times folks will be like, no, I'm doing daily Scrums every day, so I'm Scrum. And then as a result, you end up with teams that don't get the results that Scrum promises, and everybody thinks that that's Scrum.
It's not. Well, that's it. It's not. And I tell you, over the last, because we're doing a lot of talking about this, and we talk to a lot of people we work with about this, and people love to come to you and say, hey, let me tell you my Scrum experience. And about half the time, somewhere in the conversation is, well, because we're doing iteration, we're doing sprints, and we're doing daily Scrums, and so we're doing the Scrum practices. And you realize, it's very, very clear that a lot of people, for them doing Scrum, is doing the Scrum practices, and none of this other stuff.
Because they don't think about the value that the practices have, other than, this is written in the book, let's follow the recipe, right?
And you know what? Often you'll have gone to a presentation that had the perfunctory slide about the values, and then dove into the real important stuff, the practices. And that's okay. We lived in practice world for a really long time, and we still do. Great practice. The practices in Scrum are great. Generally, the practices in any of the good Agile methodologies, like look at the practices in XP, for example. Those are great practices. They tend to be really well, collected, stripped down.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is that if you take the practices in Scrum and just apply them in a waterfall, world, you're still going to get some value from doing that.
In fact,
just doing a daily inspection is going to give you some value. Just doing, having a task board up on the wall and showing people what you're doing is going to give you some value. Just using user stories is going to give you some value. But
it's
what we call better than not doing it results.
Because it's better than not doing it.
Right.
And it's and that's why adopting a new methodology is a process. And it takes time for people to learn a new way of doing things. And becoming a pushy Agile zealot can make it harder to bring Agile to your company. Saying, you did this, do all these practices, do it. and now you're doing Scrum. And I'm actually imitating somebody we know. So.
It's not right.
On the other hand, give your team new practices that they can do today, but then give them a vision of what they can accomplish tomorrow. And then they won't assume that they're doing Scrum just because they've adopted a few simple practices. Because at the very beginning of the talk, here they are. They're simple. Why aren't we doing them today? You know what? You can do them today. It's kind of like what we said. It's like the old Othello board game. A minute to learn, a lifetime to master, right?
So we've got like 5 minutes left. We should close down, give people a chance to say something if they've got to.
So let's close out. Many teams adopt Scrum practices without the Scrum values first, and that's okay. But only if everyone on the team shares the goal of self-organizing. They don't have to do it today. They just have to understand what it is and agree that that's where they want to go with this. When they work together towards a real Scrum adoption, everyone can help change the culture around them to accept the Scrum values. And that's where they're going to get those great results. And that's how they're going to get to come together as a team. They're going to start to understand why you need to put in place an elevating goal. And why you need to actually not just have assignments every day, but talk every day about the plan. Plan together, work together. Everybody feels some ownership. Everybody be a pig. You don't have to have it all in place today. To give them an idea of where they're going. And then instead of saying, we don't have that Scrum, we have it, and feeling like, well, I don't really have it, say, we have something good, and we'll have something better tomorrow. And I think with that, we'd love to hear some questions.
When someone's brand new to a project or a company, you have a tendency to give them either work or tasks or suggestions at first based on what they can jump into quickly. How do you transition from that to them being a full-fledged member of the team that can get work on their own?
So it's how do you kind of, if I understand you right, it's basically how do you go from people who are have to take somebody who joins a project and is used to having their work assigned to them and broken down for them, and how you go from that to somebody who can kind of do it on their own. And In my experience, actually, pretty easily. And here's why. Because if you know enough to actually do the work, you generally know enough to figure out what work has to be done. I mean, it kind of they go hand in hand. And in fact, if you think about how, go step back to PMP, because we spent a lot of time in the PMP world, and think back at how project plans are made. You spend a lot of time gathering, expert judgment is an input to like half of the PMP processes. Well, how about having that expert judgment right there on the team every day, involved in the planning up front, and then looking at the plan every day? So you're not just injecting expert judgment once at the beginning. Those experts are the people on your team. If you can get them to feel some ownership and sense of commitment, they will step up and they will do it. And then it's just practice from there. But it's mostly about ownership. So I saw something there.
Just an observation, really. We work here at Kaplan, as our COO said. We're about a year into this whole process, so we're learning, we're growing, we're making some good progress. But the team that I'm the Scrum Master on a team, and our team is working on business goals, very date-driven. So there's this to and fro, back and forth that we're still working through. In terms of there are times when you absolutely the business has made a commitment to because we have to meet an external commitment that's driven by other companies, if you will. We have to compete in the space. So we're going back and forth on that. But anyway, my observation in terms of getting there is around self-organization. The team's really great. They've done a super job. We were going off the rails in terms of meeting some of these date commitments, and the product owner was very concerned, to say the least. What happened to this commitment? You told me you could do this. What happened? So we went from that sort of low point to in the next sprint saying basically what you're doing. I think I'm just looking for a little feedback. But I said let's just turn it over to the development team and let them tell us. Organize this yourself. It was a little frightening, if you will, because we were facing these really big dates, and we absolutely had to come through in the end. But we turned it over to the team, and they organized. They went off and they said, leave us alone for 3 hours. And when we came back, everybody else, that is, QA and everybody, we came back and they said, this is how we're going to do it. And they laid it out. Some of the things that originally we thought could get done couldn't, but we trusted them, and it worked out really well. Now that's our operating model. Is that kind of, we heading in the right direction?
That sounds great.
Our coach thinks we are.
It's awesome, actually. It's great.
And it's not surprising that
It's definitely not perfect. I'm saying it's like the first step. And we were together for a while. It was the first really low point. So
I have two observations. So yeah, it does sound awesome. One is it's totally not surprising that you have a coach. An Agile coach, someone who's been through it before and helped other teams and really understands not just Agile or Scrum, but also coaching, is enormously valuable. And there's a great book by Lissa Atkins called Coaching Agile Teams that will help you understand a lot of the ideas behind coaching. The other observation is, you said, except for QA, did you pick up on that one too?
No, I didn't.
You said,
yeah, they weren't in the room and they came when we came up with the plan. Right?
Maybe they should have been there.
I think it's something that we're doing next spring because having them left out just isn't working.
Really? You've seen problems with it?
Yeah. Jenny's, but that's a drum Jenny's been beating.
They add a lot of value to the process by saying, well, wait a minute, they need to be there as part of it. What can be done, what can't be done, and when they need to be part of that plan.
Right, and understanding the rationale of why things were ordered the way that they are would impact your trust planning too, right?
Yeah. It's that way.
Jenny's been beating this drum for as long as we've been working together, and every single time people have gotten the QA team involved in the actual development planning and really into the day-to-day work of development, it has had astoundingly good results. I've never seen that be a bad decision.
Okay.
One in the back.
Earlier you had mentioned some of the benefits and mostly placed in the context of benefits to the company or to the project. How about making more explicit the benefits to the team members of the Scrum approach?
So the question was, that's a great question. The question was, you talked about benefits to the company or the project, but can you talk about the benefits to team members? We were just talking about this over the weekend. Because we're working on our next book. It's on Agile software development, and this is basically
Specifically called Understanding Agile right now.
that's the working title. And one of the things we were just talking about and put a section about is if you're a developer, if you're a rock star developer, what does this do for you? And the answer is a lot. For one, learning. You know, if you ever read, I don't know if you've ever read Pragmatic Programmer by Dave Thomas and Andy Hunt. Awesome book. One of the things they talk about is great programmers keep learning. And learning works best if it's not in isolation. And Agile teams communicate really, really well. And you will find that this guy next to you is using a design pattern in a way that you've never seen before, a design pattern you haven't used before, or a technology. You pick up so much through osmosis by having a team that communicates, and that when you're looking at their work, you learn so much from them and you pick up so much from them. Also, you do better work. And really good developers want to do better work. I mean, that's more than anything else. But you know what else? You go home on time. And
Sustainable pace.
that's an XP principle, but really closely related to focus. And really, it's hard to argue with that. Going home on time and then getting more done because of it. We didn't, as across industries, we didn't hit upon the 40-hour work week by accident. The first half of the 20th century, there was a lot of, we're appropriately in the building run by the Carpenters Union, and unions had a lot to play with it. But unions didn't just demand it of businesses. American businesses in particular adopted the 40-hour work week because they saw it as effective. Once Henry Ford did it in 1919, switched down to the 40-hour work week, the other car companies moved that way too because they saw he got such great results. Because the entire first half of that century is littered with productivity charts where at 40 hours, productivity drops off and quality problems, defects shoot up. So going home at the end of the day rather than staying till 1 a.m., that's another benefit, having a personal life. Mostly though, it's just a great way to work. And more than anything else, I've talked to really great developers who would never go back, specifically because it's so much better. You build better software. You do it as a team that you tend to get along with better.
You have more control over what you do. It's not about somebody coming up to you and telling you you need to do this, then this, then this.
It's being respected. That's a big selling point. It's sold me many times. So,
is it raffle time?
I think it's that where we're going. Do you want to do one or two more questions? We got one more question. Does anyone have one more question? I guess we're. Well, it's good because we got the coming to the end here. Then what I'm going to do here is, if you've got any questions, we're easy to find. If you want to get these slides, we actually presented this right off the slides on our website. Actually, what you can do is just Google for Stellman and Greene. And you'll get the slides right there. Everybody, thanks so much. It's always a huge pleasure talking to you.